So it feels like a lifetime for me. Back in 2009, when I was in grad school up at St. John's, I was volunteering for an organization that advocated for the immigrant communities there in central Minnesota. I was part of a meeting with both folks from this nonprofit and city and church leaders. And what was going on is many of these immigrant communities are working in the nearby, primarily meatpacking plants. And they were fearful both to drive to work, they were fearful to go to the grocery store at night. Sometimes they were avoiding doctor's appointments because even though they were here on work visas to be working there, they were afraid of still getting pulled over and being arrested for, a minor infraction and things escalating from there. I've not thought about that experience in a long time, and when it came to mind this week, I was like, wow, that sounds really familiar. When I attended this meeting way back then with these church leaders and city leaders, I remember leaving the meeting feeling so positive, like it was so productive. We made plans, we had things in place, we were going to figure out what to do. And I was walking with the woman that was the head of this nonprofit. She was Latino herself, and I could tell from her body language that she was not near as upbeat as me. And she said to me, all they do is talk and talk and talk. Another meeting, another policy, another task force, but nothing ever changes. Our people are living in fear right now, and we don't have time for any more talking. It was a humbling moment for me to realize the urgency that she was living in that I in no way understood in that moment. I eventually stopped volunteering for that organization, and I don't remember why. School, relationships, timing, something got in the way, as things so often do. Because it's so easy for us to get distracted, to have something else kind of grab our attention, for other things to take our priorities, especially if the thing that we're working for doesn't impact us directly, doesn't cause fear within ourselves. This past week on Wednesday, I get to take my daughter to school on Wednesdays. It's the only day I get to do the pickup and drop off. And I pulled onto kind of our main street in Columbia Heights, the kind of like main drag, and there was a car in front of me with tinted windows and out-of-state license plates, and a car behind me pulled behind us similarly, out-of-state license plates, tinted windows. And as I was driving, just like maybe a block, and then they both abruptly made like an illegal left turn, turned into traffic, and looped back around and went back up my neighborhood. This has become the norm for us in Columbia Heights, and I imagine for many of you in your neighborhoods or the places where you work. This was the first time where I had experienced that. I'd seen ICE and other folks in our neighborhood, but I had never been like in traffic with them before. And it was such a unique feeling, to say the least, because it was probably the first time that, or I know it was the first time that my white privileged body felt fear simply trying to take my daughter to school. For the first time in my life, I feel like I understand that there's too much talking. But I see that there's always been too much talking. Too many meetings, too many broken promises, too many negotiations that repeatedly allow brown and black bodies to live in fear and white bodies to be distracted and placated. I think so often we as the Christian community, it's so easy for us to forget who we are, what our gospel tells us today, that we are the salt of the earth, a light on a hill. We've been allowed to believe that maybe volunteering a couple times a year, putting a sign in our lawn, putting a post on Facebook is enough. Or we've simply just forgot that we have a power, that we are the salt and the light. That's what Jesus has told us. And it has been so amazing in this past month to see just how salty and light-filled we are. Our first reading from Isaiah is one of my favorites. I love it because it so clearly states both who we are called to be and what happens if we live into that calling. And it's not that complicated. Feed the hungry, shelter the homeless. Don't hide from their needs and don't hide from your own needs. I'm so struck by that. How often do we wish to hide our own needs, hide other people's needs, because that's where things sometimes get complicated. But when we make them visible to ourselves, visible to the world, that's when healing happens. I am sure all of you have been just as touched as I have been by the outpouring of love for our state from around the world. The words of gratitude that we are showing up and showing other people how to show up, to not let hatred and violence win or have the final word, to put our neighbors' needs out in the open, to let them be seen. And what our scripture promises us is that when we do this, when the needs become visible, when we stop talking and start doing, we find healing. Light will come to us. Our wounds will be healed. Because the wounds of our neighbors, the fear that our neighbors live in, those are our wounds too. When they are wounded, we are wounded. It's so easy and tempting to think that nothing will ever change. That what we are living through right now is just yet another repeat of the cycle that has been playing out in our country and in the world generations after generations. And that has started to scare me this week because I've noticed that Minnesota isn't the front line on the news anymore, right? Things are taking place. Things are covering it up. We're not the local or national news headline anymore. The news cycle is ready for something new. My mind and heart are ready for something new, and I imagine yours are too. But this is the moment of all the multitude of moments and points in history that we get to be alive. This is our moment to show up. When Isaiah was preached, those folks were living in fear and in hiding, and those words were for them. And now those words are for us. God, the prophet Isaiah, they wrote those words for us just as much as they wrote those words for the Hebrews in hiding. Because this is how God has called us to reveal the needs of our neighbors. And because when we, from our own hurt, from the hurt of our neighbors, find courage, and when we find courage to get connected, then our light will break forth like the dawn. This is the way that our shadows become like noon. This is how we find healing. There's no need to talk about it anymore or to discern what the best course of action is. We just need to go. And of course, mistakes will be made along the way, and that's okay. We're humans, we're figuring it out. We have to give each other grace, but we have to act and move. In the next few weeks, as we get closer and closer to the Lenten season, we will listen to Jesus as he trains his disciples to prepare for what will appear to them to be the deepest wound of all, their teacher's death. And how does he prepare them for this? He keeps telling them stories, like he does in our gospel today, and he shows them through his actions in his daily life what matters most, what will get them through that day and the next day. Keep reaching out to one another, keep loving one another. This is how we make it through this. Jesus today says to us, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. What strikes me in both of those sentences and then this gospel is that it isn't about Jesus, it isn't about God, it's about us. It's who we are. We are the salt and we are the light. And we need to immerse ourselves in stories of salt and light right now. In our little city of Columbia Heights, we span just 3.5 miles. 22,000 people live in our city. And because of the outpouring both of our community and throughout the nation and the world, just last month, we were able to give $81,000 in rental assistance, stopping 114 people from being evicted. We provided $37,000 in groceries and $3,000 in cash assistance for our neighbors in need. I know this is just one of the many, many examples of ways people are pouring their light and salt into the world right now. When I read our first reading today, and like I mentioned, it's one of my favorite readings, and this was the first time that I read that reading, and I thought, oh yeah, we're actually doing this. This is what it means. There's nothing else to do but to take care of each other. It's not that complicated. That's what we're called to do. And of course, it gets tiring. It is tiring. It's challenging. The news cycles are challenging. And we all need to take breaks to care for ourselves. My husband keeps reminding me that this moment in history and my life in general is not a sprint, but it's a marathon. And so I want to encourage all of us to pay attention to our bodies, pay attention to what we need. I know there is so much that we all carry, even outside of this big national global thing that's going on. We have hurts and trials and needs in our own hearts and our own families right now. And so I want to give every single one of us permission to be in those, to get help for those, to take time to rest, but then to also just keep looking for the stories and keep telling the stories. Because this world kind of wants us to be stuck in this negativity, right? To get stuck in the sadness or the hatred or the violence, and to find ourselves in that own loop. But Jesus tells us instead to keep telling those stories of salt and light, to keep looking for the ways that God is showing up, that we are showing up in the world. Keep looking for the good. Keep lifting up the good. Keep giving that the power in your life, because we truly are the salt and light for the world. And it is our job, our unique, beautiful job as this community, to show the world how beautiful the world is. Like, that's what salt and that's what light does, right? It amplifies, it enhances, and that's what we're called to do. And there's so much good for us to amplify and enhance, and so much love and care to bring to our neighbors. Thank you for all that you do to care for one another and for this community. And I just invite us to keep the hope and keep going and keep telling the stories.